I just saw the epic War 2 in theaters. Or, according to some of you, maybe it should be called Bore 2? Or perhaps Snore 2? Let's break it down right now. In War 2, things get complicated when Kabir, a secret agent, is accused of betraying his nation, and his former batchmate Vikram is assigned the task of finding him. This film was directed by Ayan Mukerji, who did not direct part 1, and it kind of shows. The first war film was fun, but in my opinion, it has some serious tone and pacing issues, amongst other things. In part 2, the tone and pacing are a lot better, partially due to the director being able to focus on the simpler storyline in comparison to the twists and turns of part 1, but we'll talk about story later. That being said, I will give the director some credit. In part 1, I felt like the pacing was totally off, mostly because of the use of slow motion. There was so much slow motion in part 1, it definitely felt like it added at least half an hour to the runtime. At least. In this one, of course, there's slow-mo. You can't not have slow-mo in a sexy spy flick. But for a 3-hour movie, I was happy with how much of that runtime was actually used for story. And when the slow-mo was used, it was kind of dope. I will say the music was crazy dramatic and intense for what seems like every single scene, which I think also takes away from the tone and takes the weight out of the scenes where we should get that high drama music. The lighting choices were also a little interesting and not always in a good way, but we'll get more into lighting in the next section. Overall, the tone was mostly consistent with a spy action movie. The pacing was improved, shot choice, blocking, performance decisions, all that was great. Also, the themes explored of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption were much clearer in this film and executed fairly well with the story of Vikram, formerly Raghu. There's some themes of patriotism and nationalism too. 4 or 5 for direction and vision. So cinematography and visuals are probably the biggest lightning rod of this movie, specifically the visuals as a whole. Technically speaking, the cinematography was great. Dare I say excellent. There was clearly a bigger budget than the first film, and it showed in the sets, locations, color grade, and effects, which were amazing in my opinion. They even have a showdown in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. The fight blocking and choreography and action sequences are amazing. Tons of pulse pounding, muscle flexing, girl swooning action. Quick spoiler alert, there's a chase scene that ends up with Kabir driving his car on top of a train while having to save his daughter. Meanwhile, Vikram is in hot pursuit. Got me so amped. I wasn't really that amped, but it was a fun, visually striking scene. Anyway, the CG and de-aging are a whole nother story. That wolf in the beginning was complete rubbish. It was faker looking than the tiger in RRR, and it also served no purpose whatsoever, unlike the tiger in RRR. I would have rather seen a real wolf in a single shot and Kabir in a single shot, and they switch back and forth, than watch that monstrosity of a wolf they rendered for the big screen. Thank God that was at the beginning so I could make the connection of, oh yeah, I'm about to watch something that's utterly ridiculous, so let me silence my cell phone and turn up my suspension of disbelief so I don't get disappointed. And as far as lighting and color, that was also somewhat distracting for me the entire picture. If I'm being honest, I actually liked the lighting and color a lot. It felt high quality, dynamic, and visually pleasing. But the problem for me was I kept wondering where the hell some of it was motivated from. Like there's a scene where Kabir first makes contact with the villain group Kali, and he's tied up in this room with all sorts of RGB going on from unspecified sources that would clearly not be there in reality. Even in the dance scene, while it's lit very nicely, it also feels overly lit at the same time. And look, I love lighting in filmmaking. It's the secret to the Hollywood film look. But just as much as lighting is important, not lighting is just as important. That being said, I thought the look of this film was outstanding, and yes, it's ridiculous, but the film knows it's ridiculous, so it works. 4 or 5 for cinematography and visuals. The writing in War 2, as far as dialogue, is kind of meh. I did see this in theaters with the original language and subtitles, so it's possible things are lost in translation. The voice actors were awesome though, so for me, I'll just call dialogue a wash. Storytelling was just okay. Not as many twists in this one compared to part 1, but maybe that's better, so it's easier to follow. I for sure got lost multiple times in the first one, so it was a more enjoyable experience this time, being able to clearly understand. I also think simple makes for a bigger net when fishing for an international market. That's why Hollywood makes so many high concept films, right? The first half of this film is all plot though, and literally about halfway through, the story begins. Speaking of story, I really enjoyed the flashback to young Kabir and Ragu. That may have been my favorite sequence story-wise. At its core, this film is a bro buddy flick. But again, I do appreciate the simplicity of the story, although it was pretty predictable. And since it was a 3-hour movie, I do wish there was a little bit more to it. But overall, there was enough there that I could at least feel a little bit at the end, which I did not in part 1. 3 of 5 for writing and storytelling. Before we get to the last 2 categories, please subscribe if you're enjoying this review. You don't even have to leave the video. Just hit that icon down there and you're good to go. Thank you. Back to the review. War 2 stars Hrithik Roshan as the hero and big-haired heartthrob Kabir, and NTR as his scorned former best friend Vikram. Hrithik Roshan definitely has a good action spy hero look, and he has no problem leaning into it on screen. His portrayal of Kabir, who is the exceptionally gifted spy and all-around amazing guy, definitely works for the film at large, but his actual performance is just okay. He did have an emotional moment in a scene toward the end where I actually think he delivered, and he's definitely more likable than he was in part 1, but in general, I think he does a good job. NTR as Vikram definitely carries this picture though. Both guys have fun introductions, but NTR's performance is always turned up to a 10 in this film.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna dial it right up to a 10.
He's crazy intense and over the top the entire film, but it's perfect for what this film is and for the motivation of his character. Speaking of his character, I thought Hardy Singh as young Ragu was one of the standouts in this film. And he was a much better casting choice to play a young NTR than the actor that played young Kabir for Hrithik. The film also starred Kiara, Advani, Anil Kapoor, Ashutosh Rana, who I also thought was a bright spot in his limited role, and K.C. Shankar, who played one of the members of the evil faction Kali, which isn't an acronym, by the way. His character was nothing you haven't seen before, but I have to admit, he does have an on-screen presence about him, and although his performance wasn't necessarily standout, I did still enjoy it. All in all, I thought the acting was good. Characters were meh. I think NTR, Ashutosh Rana, and Hardy Singh's performances elevated the cast, but in general, everyone was good. 3 of 5 for performances and characters. So first off, let me say to everyone that's dogging this film and saying it's too fake looking or overly masculine or too dramatic and on and on. Yeah, sometimes it is all of those things. but that's kind of the point. Have you ever seen Sharknado? It's terrible, but it's also great too. And I'm not saying this film is Sharknado. It's much, much better. But my point is, Sharknado knew what it was, didn't take itself too seriously, went for it, and made something entertaining and unique. The difference is, this also doesn't take itself too seriously, but it doesn't think of itself as a complete joke either. I would compare these films closer to a Fast and Furious type of movie, except I would much rather watch these because, with the exception of the first one, the Fast and Furious franchise gives you no story, thus nothing to engage with, thus no feeling. The fact that films like War 2 and RRR and so many other Bollywood and Tollywood films, the fact that they at least attempt a real story makes those more like the Fast and Furious on steroids, or better yet,
on weed.
And clearly, even with all the hate it gets, these films make a lot of money and are very popular among its core audience, and it's only getting bigger globally. Also, a lot of the music from the album is on fire. Yes, the score can get crazy dramatic, just like the acting and the filming, but you can't say it's not entertaining. At the end of the day, it's a fun, action-packed story. Yes, it's simple, but sometimes that's even more enjoyable. I think although insane, it's cohesive. And with 3 hours of cool visuals, action, drama, betrayal, love, you name it, you're definitely getting your money's worth. 4 or 5 for execution and impact. All in all, War 2 gets a rating of 18, which puts it comfortably in my second highest ranking, a crowd pleaser. Don't forget to check out my movie phone videos and get a fun, different take on movie reviews, new and old. Did you see War 2? What ranking would you give it? Let me hear it in the comments. If you'd like to see more of my Earnest and movie phone reviews, please subscribe for much more. Thank you for watching. Finished.